My name is Rob Dolin. I'm a part of Microsoft's former team formerly known as Microsoft OpenTech, working on cross-platform interoperability. And Jeff and I are co-chairs of the Open Container Initiative Certification Program Workgroup.
So we've got about a half hour worth of interesting information to pack into 5 minutes, so we're going to keep moving quickly. And I'm going to talk a little bit about container technology just to make a couple of key points. And you can check out the slide. But container technology is not anything tremendously new, which is good. It means the foundation of it is rock solid. And you can see from the presentation that it really got off in the Unix space around the year 2000, and plenty of different companies, from Solaris to Google, the Linux Foundation, IBM, Red Hat, up until most recently, our friends at Docker really kind of rocked the world by taking a couple of key components and adding some additional value add and making it a lot easier for your average developer or sysadmin to wrap their head around how do you take advantage of containers. Because let's face it, Google was leveraging the heck out of container technology ever since like the 06, 07 timeframe. The Borek was just massively crunching through containers. Docker, to their credit again, put together this innovative technology, and it's really been a game changer. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how that's evolved. So I first started working with Docker back in 2014 at the OpenStack conference down in Atlanta. And that was all the buzz on the show floor, is that, gee, this startup's done this quick pivot, and they've created this compelling new technology. And we got interested right away because we really saw the potential, but we also saw the fact that it was an open source project, and the company behind it had co-branded around Docker. And so they'd made a commitment back then to be radically open. And we've been working with them along with a bunch of other companies, and ultimately that led to Solomon at DockerCon mid-2015 making this announcement about the Open Container Initiative. It's a working group of the Linux Foundation, and the key tenets of this effort have been that it's not going to be tightly controlled by any single vendor. So one of the things that we always look at is this idea of how do you balance the concept of open source with open governance, and that's really what the OCI is all about as it relates to the base container technology. So a lot of people have been involved with this, but in addition to Docker, really want to give a shout out to the guys at CoreOS. They were instrumental in working with Docker early on, and then they also saw this desire to really ensure that this dialogue got started about how to make this technology truly open. So they put out this alternative approach with their Rocket initiative, and that really helped spur this dialogue about the fact that this really needed to be a shared base technology that many companies could come together and collaborate on. So you can see by the logos up on the screen, many companies are involved with this, and Rob's going to go into a bit more detail as to exactly who's participating in this, because it's still very much a multi-vendor environment.
Thanks very much, Jeff. As Jeff mentioned, there's a lot of companies that are participating in this, and as you can see, this is not a open source project that's dominated by one company or even one or two companies. Just to list a few here: Red Hat, Docker, Huawei, CoreOS, Fujitsu, Parallels, SUSE, IBM, Linux Foundation, Google, Microsoft, Cloudflare, Stripe, Intel, Wizardry, Canonical, EMC, Infostir, and Pivotal are all up on that pie chart. OCI is a really interesting project because its primary output is specs, the runtime spec and the image format spec. And as you can see from the diagram up here, the runtime spec is influenced both by an open source reference implementation that's part of runC, as well as by industry products. You can see the cartoon Docker hamster wheel running, as well as CoreOS Rocket, as well as a whole ecosystem of vendors, products, and users. So the OCI certification program is a project that a number of members of OCI are working on to try to provide an OCI certified runtime and an OCI certified image. And the groups have defined those as meeting all of the must or required provisions from the specs. So it's not about you have to use this open source project, but you can use the open source reference implementation, or you can use other code to meet those requirements. And then OCI has worked on trademarking a number of marks or terms related to that. Last but not least, this is what the certification program draft is going to look like. This is how you can get involved, opencontainers.org. And thank you very much.
Boom.